Hi, I'm Jerry Gionis. Welcome to Wedding Photography. I am so excited to share all that I know. In fact, I've actually been a professional photographer now for over 26 years. I'm approaching my 27th year as of 2020. It's going to be a fun ride, guys. I was born and raised in Melbourne, Australia. I actually of Greek descent. I consider myself Greek. I speak Greek as well. And I live here most of the time here in Las Vegas, USA. I have a lot of experience. I'm looking forward to sharing that with you. In fact, I want to give you a bit of an idea as to how I started and perhaps what qualifies me to be in front of your favorite device right now. So I was given my first camera at the age of 15 by my brother Nick. I became obsessed, perhaps just like you. It was a bug. I literally had to photograph anything and everything. For some reason, this trigger was just flicked in my brain. I'm like, I just need to play. I need to press that shutter as often as possible. I would go and photograph the tennis. I'd photograph industrial scapes. I would photograph streetscapes. I would photograph portraits. In fact, I'd go to dinner with my friends and I would have the camera in my bag, would order our meal, and I'd say to my friend, hey, because we're here, we've got about 10 minutes, can I just go outside and photograph you, or photograph you right at this booth, at this restaurant? So I was the guy that everyone got sick of, perhaps just like you at home right now. But that's just the cool thing. For some reason, once you are obsessed with something, I believe that it's almost more important. I mean, most of us follow our passion first. Hey, that sounds like fun. I believe you should follow what you're good at. And certainly the passion will turn into what you're good at, but this is what it's all about. If you're good at photography or you have an eye, I believe you're not born with knowing lighting or posing or anything like that. You're born with the eye for composition. There's a good start. Once you have that eye, that just somehow you have that timing of when to press that shutter, you know how to compose, then you know you're onto something. Can it be taught? Of course it can. But there's nothing quite like having that fierce obsession with loving what you do. So what I did was I did it as a hobby, photography, all throughout high school. And of course I did my English and maths through high school, but I did arts and graphics, and anything that I could volunteer for as a photographer in high school, I did. And then after high school, I worked at a couple of camera stores. I just wanted to basically be around the industry until I worked out what I was going to do. And I applied for many different courses in photography. In fact, I got rejected from a pretty easy college to get into, but probably known as a really good one to get into, but they rejected me. Like, I didn't have enough experience. I'm like, well, that's why I'm here. I want experience. So there was a 4-year photography course, and during that first year of my photography course, they didn't teach me anything. They taught me how to process a film and be in the darkroom and print my own prints, and of course it's now arguably not relevant. Certainly experience that I can take into the digital darkroom, but they didn't teach me about lighting, didn't teach me about posing, communication skills, anything like that. I lost patience. I quit after a year. Then as I was still, on the side selling cameras and working in a few camera stores, I wanted to work with someone established. So I knocked on the door of a prominent studio and I said, I want to carry your bags. I want to learn wedding photography from you. I would love to work for you, but hey, don't have to pay me anything. Give me the privilege of holding your bags. So I held the bags of an experienced photographer for about 1.5 years, and it was the best learning experience I could possibly have. Now, in today's age, I think many of us want to become our own boss and become a professional photographer straight away. Let's say you do assist a friend who's a photographer, you want to pick up the camera and start shooting. I believe the best way that you can learn is just watch. No different than watching a painter. Like, how do they mix the paints? How do we get that color palette? How do we put those brush strokes on the canvas? So I was forced to carry bags and lights of an experienced photographer, and I would learn that how, in fact his name was Peter, how Peter would interact with people, how he would diagnose a scene, how he would light people, how he would approach different subjects and challenging subjects, all the storytelling things. And of course, back then we would photograph with medium format cameras. For those of you who don't know what that means, it's basically a big camera and on film, and you would photograph 10 shots per roll of film. In fact, there were 3 actions that it would take to take one photograph. You'd click the shutter, you'd cock the mirror, and you'd wind the film. So having come from that background, and to today's age, I really appreciate the digital technology and how fast and easy and fun and efficient it has become. But I learnt what it was like to be on the job. And I became obsessed with that process. And I enjoyed the freedom of not carrying the camera. And at one point, after about a year and a half of assisting, Peter basically said to me, Jerry, why don't you photograph the groom's coverage? So arguably he would photograph the brides, I'd photograph the grooms, and I'd cut my teeth on something that was a little bit easier. You know, photograph the groom traditionally, a bit more creative with the parents and with the groomsmen. You know, I could handle that. Then as I did that well, I did a bride's coverage. As I did that well, I do a ceremony, then a reception, then night shots, and all these different things. And then all of a sudden I got my first wedding. And that was about, like I said, about a year and a half to 2 years into my training. And we called it a little Aussie wedding, right? A little Aussie wedding basically connotates that it's a very relaxed, very easygoing, nothing fancy, backyard wedding. So I didn't have the ridiculous pressure of a big Greek or Macedonian or Jewish wedding. As I did that very well, then I would get, again, different cultures and then bigger weddings. And here's the thing, I think many of us, what we do is we start in this industry not having any kind of tutelage like you've got right now, and like, well, I know, well, how hard is it? Just tell the story, photograph what's going on. But we've all been there before. If you're a wedding photographer, been in this industry, there's no second chances. You have to get it right. And part of my expression here, but my ex-boss told me, a shit shot's better than no shot. Like, you just have to get the shot. Even if it's bad, it's still okay. So what I want to share with you in this bundle, in this course, in the art and craft of wedding photography, is understanding what will make you successful, what will give you longevity, and really what it's all about. And to be honest, the best way of learning is repetition, experience, and practice. So what happened was that I finally, after a year and a half, worked for this studio for about 3.5 years. And I understood what it was like to actually photograph and work with the client before and after and sell and do these things and how to photograph to sell. So I really learned, and the cool thing was that I learned on someone else's dime. If I screwed up, that's okay. When I say, as in it's okay for me personally, not okay for the business, and not that I screwed up, it's purely that I could play with technique and understand what I would do, and all the while building this experience. And in fact, I didn't really have the desire to start my own business, but it happened organically and evolved. So after 3.5 years of working for this studio, I started my own business. And that was in '97. Now, back then there was a recession, unfortunately. It's a bit of a hard story to tell, but just a quick little cliff notes here is that our family lost our family home. And it was a very tough time. We didn't have any money. My brothers opened up a chicken shop, like a charcoal chicken to-go food store in the northern suburbs of Melbourne. And they had this big sort of building, and it was on the corner, and they had a separate door and a window on the back of this building. So I thought I said, guys, can I just build a wall here in your storeroom and then occupy this space? And it was no bigger than a medium-sized bedroom. And then back then in '97, I shot 25 weddings my first year. And then I shot 50 weddings. Then I shot 100 weddings. And then it was just this repetition. I was just doing so many weddings that it became easy. When I say easy, it was challenging. And as every wedding is challenging, but this repetition experience and practice that I did, it became second nature. But to become second nature, you just have to do it over and over again. The famous line of being able to practice, before you master anything, you have to spend 10,000 hours doing it. And I certainly had done that. So then in about 2000, 2001, we reinvented the business. And I noticed an air above the building that I was at. So to this day, the charcoal chicken store. And I asked the overall landlord, I said, may I build a second level above the studio and the chicken shop, and I'll be happy to rent it off you. It took me a year to convince him, a year to build, and then there I was with this big studio. And the studio that I had, the glorified bedroom, was now just the lobby area, the foyer of the actual studio. And I built a very large studio. In fact, one of Australia's largest and most respected studios at the time. And at one point, we had 15 employees, we did 300 plus weddings, and we did countless portraits. And then, so we did that for a long time. In 2007, I sold that business to my brother Nick, who's also a photographer, and I started a studio in Melbourne's Docklands. So basically on a pier, right on the fringe of the city, and then I catered to more of a boutique sort of clientele. And that being said, when I say boutique clientele, let's put it bluntly, someone who's willing to pay more for my services. So now at one point also in about the year 2000, I developed a love for teaching, as I'm doing with you right now, and perhaps introducing what I'm about to teach you. And that is just the desire to bring out the best in people. Because after all, I felt to myself like, what do I do as a photographer who specializes in wedding portraits and fashion? As a wedding photographer, really I'm a storyteller. I tell stories for a living. But ultimately, part of that story is bringing out the best in people. So I realized that my purpose, my why, is I love to bring out the best in people and immortalize moments for families and create a legacy for families. That's what I truly love. Perhaps you are watching right now and you share a similar philosophy. Maybe you're stuck at the art and the craft and said, Jerry, I'm with you. I love it, but I'm stuck. I'm here to actually help you out with those issues and those problems and those challenges you have, because we all had them. Certainly, I don't want to say the word shortcut. I just want to say that there's many things that I've learned that are successful and many things that I did that are not so successful that I believe that I can share with you so you don't have to make the same mistakes. And arguably, if you share similar philosophies, then we can actually grow together. So with the teaching aspect of it, and I've been teaching now for over 20 years and also teaching online for a very long time, I have actually been exposed to so many photographers all around the world, different cultures, ethnicities, male, female, different age groups, you name it, like working from a studio, working from home, high-end weddings, low-end, whatever you want to call it. I've been exposed to it. So coming from a large volume studio myself and then shooting it to a more boutique clientele in Melbourne, now having an international clientele, I in fact don't do the pretty weddings or don't do the high-end weddings. I've actually photographed normal people just like you and me. And why is that a benefit to you to understand this? Because we will have the same challenges. I've just learned how to get more money from normal people. Because I actually increase the value with what I do from the art and the craft, but more importantly, we talk about the meaning and the importance of what we do. So having the experience of actually owning a large studio and the smaller one, having the experience of shooting well over 1,000 weddings of different ethnicities and all these different things that we're talking about, I know I can help you because I've taught tens of thousands of people all over the world, not only in person, but also online. What I'm here to do right now, guys, is give you all my gems, all the street smart of wedding photography in one neat little curated package that you can follow along, and let's grow together.